Hello, everybody. Back with another one. Key of D this time. We're going to do some chords in the key of D. You'll find that our old boy, our old friend, our old pal, B minor is back. And he's not any kinder, unfortunately. He's just a grumpy old fart, and we have to deal with him. But I will say some things on that when we get there. But the D chord. I will say first off, on your diagram on page 18, we're in the key of D. First thing you'll notice is the low E string, the one that's closest to your face. I say low in pitch, the thickest string. It's got an X next to it. Well, friends, you can't hit that when you're playing an E, or when a D. So one thing you'll notice is either you have to be very disciplined with your strum, but like I said, if you're playing in good strumming habits, you're going to be trying to strum all the strings. So the one thing, if you go to your D chord from the key of G, not the suspended one with the pinky down, but the D chord, you're almost, I don't know if this is right or wrong. I live here on the key of D with my thumb ready to rap for multiple things. But you just kind of have to be aware that some of the ways to play your A, the A chord, you might need to shift that thumb from the rap position to the ready rap to ready to like almost scales and pinch. Okay, so that is one unfortunate thing about the D key, is that you might have to be ready to switch back and forth. But I suppose the same is true with the key of G. And we only rap if you want to do the D over F sharp and play that F sharp on the high, on the low E string closest to your face with the thumb. Okay, but we're going to play that chord a lot here in the key of D as well, which I do not have that written down. That was a miss. But anyway, here we go with the key of D. D chord. You want to mute that E string, otherwise you'll have not fun. Mute it. Might be worth mentioning, on the one chord, the D, you can hammer on and off that middle finger. Kind of a fun little sound. And you also should probably be ready, available to play that Dsus chord from that Sus, that make it up in the air again, in the key of D. Sus chord. Might just be prepared for that. We're gonna go back and forth with that pinky a lot, kind of like the key of G. So that might just be something to keep your ear out for. But one thing you'll see a lot, and it's not in this lesson book, but you will see D over F sharp a lot in this key and in the key of G. And that's just gonna, instead of muting, you're gonna hold that F sharp down. Slash chords are not really something I'm gonna get into, at least in this lesson or the previous ones. Maybe in a further one, but it's just a bass line. It's just a direction for the bass line. If you play the top or the left side of the slash chord, you're playing the chord. That's what it's telling you to do, is the chord. So, but we can accomplish some of that too by keeping that in the bass line, D over F sharp. But you won't always want that. It has a very unique sound, with the third being in the lowest note, the highest one or the closest one to your face. But anyway, at least muted. D suspended, D pinky on, D suspended. All right. The next chord is the 4 chord in this key, which should be the key of G. Sorry, not the key of G, the chord that's G in the key of D. G chord. So if you go from your, it's almost the same, or it is the same rather, as the one that we did in the key of G. So you can go that, you can hit your D suspended, and then start to change back to the one we had in the key of G. Okay, so D, muting that one, to the key, D that pinky down, lift the middle finger up, and move them back to where we had in the key of G. Cool. There is an alternate G chord in here, and it's a pretty one to play. So if you take your D chord, put your pinky down, like the Dsus chord. Now we're going to lift our middle finger, but we are not going to change our first finger. That first finger, these fingers right here, 1, 2, the ring, everything but the middle finger is going to stay the exact same, okay? And really the only thing I'm going to change, I'm going to take my middle finger, I'm going to do on the low E string, the one closest to your face, I'm going to be on 3rd fret. Now that would make an open A. Okay, I'm not even used to playing it. We don't really want that. So instead of, I think I've showed you this before, but most of the time you want, as much as possible, you want this little digit to be perpendicular to the fretboard, because that keeps your finger skin out of the way of other strings. You don't want them to be muted or buzzed or whatever. But in this case, if I just flatten that a little, or, you know, allow it not to be perpendicular, but you're reaching pretty far, so just let the reach flatten out your finger a little bit, and it will mute the A string. Now, let me demonstrate the difference. So we have a D chord, and if we went to the real G, we'd move both. But if we go from D to this other G, we would call it G2. I put the pinky down, leave the first finger, and only move the middle finger, muting that one. So here's option 1 is real G. Okay. Option 2 is this modified G. It's pretty. And I will give you something for free. When I'm playing the G, even in the key of G, I almost always mute that A string, because that interval right there is a 3rd. That's your root of the chord, and that's the 3rd of the chord. When the strings are low together, I find that I don't like them to be that close together. A 5th is better for me. I just like that sound better. So if you're playing a G, to me that sounds a lot more clean than having the first finger down with it. This is a complete detour, so you feel free to ignore me. Fine and good, but I like it. I don't like it in there. If I want the 3rd, I'll lift up my ring finger and I'll do it up top. I feel like the notes being closer together, like 1 to 3 instead of 1 to 5, is better up higher. That's just my opinion. So I like this. I do that in a lot of places. I'll do that with the C in the key of G too. I'll mute the string right down from your face from it. So I do that too sometimes. But in this case, I think it works out really nice because we do have to mute the A. Very pretty chord. All right, now that we've only done 2 chords in 8 minutes, what a great tempo to set. So those are 2 options for G. The A chord, you also have 2 options. Okay, so one thing you could do is change your position entirely and do, I would suggest, almost like, it's like that E suspended chord that we had in the key of E, but we just don't have our first finger there. So you're on the 2nd fret for all of these. Low E, closest to your face, and the next one, A. Those are both open. The high E string is open, but everything else is on the 2nd fret. And the stack is in order of longest finger. So middle finger closest to your face, ring finger underneath that, pinky finger underneath that, just like the diagram has. Now I will tell you, that's a pretty abrupt, there's lots of distance and fingers changing there. I hardly ever play it like that. And if that's easiest for you to play, that's great. To me, it's a little harder to master at first, but I prefer a half bar for A. And I'll show you what that is. It's on your diagram, I guess, but an alternate way to play this A chord is to half bar with your finger, your first finger. So I'm basically flattening, instead of being perpendicular to the frets, which is what we want most of the time, I'm flattening. And I'm going to cover those same strings with one finger. And you just have to really move your middle or your thumb low down on the neck so that you can pinch real hard on that. As you can tell, like I don't know if you can kind of see that, but like my finger, my index finger and my thumb are directly across the neck from each other because you have to get like a really good pinch on that. Same thing with a bar chord, but the half bar. Now, the reason why I say it's challenging is because I feel like I could always stay away from the lowest in pitch strings, the ones closest to your face. That was never an issue for me, but I really struggled to not, yeah, I guess we're holding that down, not mute the high E string. That was hard for me at first, but now I've gotten quite a bit used to it, and the advantage is it's just not as much distance to cover. You're still having to reset your first finger, so everything kind of changes, but it's not a whole position switch either. Like here, where technically we would be called maybe like second position because our first finger, everything's kind of on second fret. Whereas if you do this, you're switching to first position maybe, and it's like all those fingers have to stack together. So I found it easiest to do the half bar, and that actually makes it easier to do your suspended chord. Well, that's kind of not kind. I gave you a different way for the sus chord, but this is D. A would be either here or with the half bar. It's just tough. And you can use your second finger to hit that. The sus chord would be the third fret of the B string. So you're keeping high E string is still open. You can do that with either one. And I guess the advantage to doing it this way is because that's the way you're doing your normal D, and you can keep it when you switch over. So that's kind of why I started doing it that way, because I could keep it down when I go to switch to my D. Okay, but I have on the diagram another way to do A suspended. Maybe another way to play the A, instead of stacking this way, you could also stack with your first three fingers. The disadvantage there is you're all ganging up on one fret, and you got your three biggest fingers doing that, and it's already tough enough doing that way. But the advantage to doing it that way would be your sus chord. All you would have to do, I guess I need a pinch better. My thumb needed to go back to the back of the neck. But all you have to do is squeeze over to the right your ring finger from the second fret to the third, and that's your A suspended chord. And then you can keep it there to switch to your D. But again, I just feel like my best self, my easiest switch was the half bar. It took a lot of practice to not mute the E string, but that paid off dividends for me because I could hit that sus chord pretty easily, and then I was able to switch back to D pretty easily. So that should, not even the big four. B minor comes up again. What a rascal. Now, on the diagram, this would be row 3, so the third one to the right, and then column, oh crap, I might have those backwards. Over 3, down 1. B minor chord. You'll notice that it's on the second fret. You have the first finger covering the low E string and the top. That just means you're going to have to bar. Okay, so this is that bar chord that we had, and then essentially you have an E chord on it. Oh, no, sorry, not the E chord. It's like an A minor. So you have that stack that we've done before with the B minor. It's the same as it was in the key of G, but there's that. Now, I'm going to give you an extra one on this, and it's very similar to the next B minor, but I've told you that I can't stand bar chords. I just hate them. I hate them with all my heart and soul, and if I can avoid them, I will do it. I will pay money to not have to pay them or play them. I just hate them. So what I do instead is, if you take that bar chord for B minor and you keep everything but your first finger, and I'm just going to replace that bar with half with my first finger. The only one that's open is the high E string. So I just second fret, first finger. So I've got like the bottom half of this covered. Now this is where it gets tricky. I rap and I hold down two frets with my thumb. Now you really have to get your, it takes some work. You have to kind of get your whole forearm almost to where you can really get that thumb. You may not be able to do it. It's easier to do on an electric for sure, but I employ this. And guys, I am willing to backflip. I will stand on my head if I can get this rap, because I just don't want a bar chord. To me, that's more better. It's easier for me to, that's less movement to me than that, okay? But that's just me. All right, so we'll put that one aside. Basically, the bar chord version of B minor is right here. You keep the other fingers. Just do the high E string with second fret on your first finger. And if you can rap, it's quite the rap. You almost have to think about not just the thumb coming up, but almost like the bottom of your palm has to come up. But try to just get it to where you're keeping these fingers here from muting any of the other strings. It's a tough one, but if you can do it, I don't know, it's better than a bar chord. Anyway, the other way you can play B minor is take a D, normal D, and we've already been playing D over F sharp, where you're holding down the second fret of the low E string. If, again, I will stand on my head with my hands behind my back to not do a bar chord. If you wrap your thumb, if you can, oh boy, if you can wrap that thumb around and hit the A string too, God bless. Maybe you could try Miracle Grow on your thumbs. I've never tried it, but perhaps it could work for you. If you can do that, it pays off. Disadvantage to this here is that you have to reach over. Not fun. If you have smaller fingers than mine, that might not be doable. It just might not be doable. I don't know. But for me, I can do it, so I do it because I don't want a bar chord. The other disadvantage to this is, we'll find out in music theory as we do that your B minor is very similar to a D. As a matter of fact, a B minor 7 has 4 notes in it, and like I said, minor 7s are common. So a B minor 7 has 4 notes in it. It has the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 7. The 3, the 5, and the 7 are the D chord. The 1, the 3, and the 5 of the D chord are the 3 and 5 and 7 of the B minor chord. So it's very similar to the D. So what the disadvantage to this is, it's more like a D than a B minor, because it's got a lot more 7 than it has B. Okay, it's got a lot more D than it has B, essentially. Really, the only B you're playing here is this one. Whereas if you bar chord, or we do it this way, we're playing 2 Bs. So it sounds more, and this is not, there's no minor 7 in this at all. There's no D in there. Or sorry, no A. But here we have 2 A's, I think. Yeah, 1. Well, if you can avoid that, then it's not. But anyway, what you might find is like a minor chord is special because it's a minor chord. It has a minor and sad sound. I feel like this is already too long, but I'm going to keep going. I'll play the difference. D minor, I'm going to go to A, to the real B minor. Very obvious change. Maybe I should go from the D to the B minor. Pretty obvious change. But this way, it's not as abrupt. So you might need, like if you're going from D to B minor especially, you might need a real, hey, this needs to sound minor. You might have no other choice but to bar or do the really crazy thumb wrap deal. But that is one option. Okay, that's the big four. F sharp minor chord. The good news is we've had both of these before. So the F sharp minor is the third minor in this key. It's one of the harder ones too. You can bar chord it where you have second fret, just like a B minor. B minor's up here. If you take a B minor chord, lift up your middle finger to where it's not on the fretboard, and you take these two fingers and move them towards your face one. It's like an E minor played with that stack instead, but moved up 2 frets for a bar chord. Okay, so you can do that for F sharp minor if you desire. Again, I hate bar chords, so I will try to do this one like we did with the key of E, where you have you're playing the second fret with your first finger on the G string. Those are just like the bar chord. Open E and B. You can do that too. Not quite as good on the key of D, but that's okay. And then we have that classic E minor. You can, because we have this D in here, we can keep that the same and do our little D suspended and then hit the E minor like we did from G. That'll work. Or you can avoid those and do it in that stack or that stack, whichever one is kind of most comfortable depending on where you're coming and going from and to. But that's the chords for the key of D, and I will give you a little bit of a that was a little rough for me to... I just played it there, but there you go. That's the key of D. I don't think I'm going to do any examples of the strum patterns with the book for this one. It's already 23 minutes. Have fun watching that.